Do you ever wonder what happened to your friends from high school? I mean, you were so close. You laughed together, you cried together, you shared some of the best years of your lives together. And yet, somehow through life, you just lost touch. Now it's time to relive those moments once again. Introducing the podcast that takes you back in time to the place where it all began. This is Class Reunion. We're bringing you all the gossip, secrets, and scandals from your high school days that you won't want to miss. Join us as we catch up with old classmates and dive into the wildest stories from our high school days. From those legendary parties to the infamous cliques, we're spilling all the tea on who's who and what really went down. So grab a seat, turn your volume up, and get ready for a trip down memory lane. Class Reunion, the podcast that reunites us all. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Class Reunion. I have a friend that I've been wanting to have on for a while, James Horn, realtor extraordinaire. We have been always emailing each other about having him on, and today's the day. He's catching me on Casual Friday. He looks a lot better than I do. But thank you for being on despite all your technical difficulties.
We had some issues getting it all set up today, but I think we've got it covered.
He spilled coffee with cream in it, and oh God. But thank you so much for being on. I love it. I've been in touch with you on Facebook just generally. You've answered some questions I've had about real estate too, but I love following you most of all for your darn view. I mean, it's gorgeous living on a lake. Like, right?
Thanks. Yeah, my dad was always wanted to be a lakes guy and wasn't.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that was something we certainly talked about. And then I bought my first lake house in 1996. And
oh, really?
Yeah, I bought my first house on a canal was in 1996. And
wow.
Then I never looked back. Then it was never about, am I moving off the lake? It was, how do I get the house on the main lake? Like, how do I get a bigger, better house on the main lake?
Yeah.
As much as I sell real estate in, Birmingham, Bloomfield, wherever, Rochester, yada, yada.
Yeah.
I look at the people that spend $1 million+ to live in Birmingham or Bloomfield. I'm like, you could live on a lake, right?
Right.
Right. I get that a lot.
I think people forget that, Sylvan Lake or Cass Lake or any of those, you still have so many amenities around you. Like, I think people feel like you're so far away if you live on a lake, but you're not.
No.
Like, Costco's right by where you are.
Right.
That's my staple, right?
I remember when I first moved out here, especially to the house that I'm in now. Well, this is my second house on the same street. Yeah. But when I first moved out here, people were like, oh my God, you've moved to Waterford. Like all my Birmingham and Royal Oak friends. They're like 9 million miles away because they think Waterford, M59 and Hospital Road, way over Williams Lake Road.
Exactly.
But my offices, I have an office at 15 and Telegraph, and I have an office in downtown Birmingham right across the street from the Birmingham Theater, right? My door to door to my office in Birmingham is 15 minutes. Door to door, getting out of the car.
Wow.
And people, and so my friends from Birmingham and Royal Oak would come and they would go, oh, the Waterford's going to be so fun. Hey, this is really close.
Yeah.
This is like being up north. I love this.
I moved to Troy. That was my last place before I moved down to Florida. And if you had told me I was going to live in Troy, I mean, nobody ever went across 15 Big Beaver. It was like, that seemed so far away. Somerset wasn't built yet.
Right.
Agree with you. Love lake life. And it prevents you from, or not prevents you, but you don't have to drive up north for 5 hours and sit in traffic. I mean, my gosh, that's a lifesaver right there.
That's absolutely the conversation I have with people all the time that have their Birmingham house, Bloomfield house, whatever. I'm like, okay, so you've got your house up on Hubbard Lake or wherever up north that you drive to 9 weekends a year. You leave on Thursday, you're in the car for 3.5 hours, and then you leave on Sunday and you're in the car for 4.5 hours because of the traffic. Yeah. And oh, by the way, you were up there doing chores all weekend instead of sitting by the lake. Or you could,
and you have 2 mortgages,
Or you could sell that one, sell the one you've got and buy a bigger one beyond the lake, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the first world problems. Right. But
I know. Right.
At the same time, if you can it's life changing. It's not lost on me. I mean, everybody's like,
it must just relax you at the end of the day, which is what I always see. Like, you've got a glass of wine and excellent food and you grill like a king and you got your dog Atlas. And I'm like, the guy's
we try.
Okay.
And of course, social media is, your best night. Right. Oh, this is great. Here's I'm drinking a glass of wine.
Forget the argument we had an hour earlier.
Right. Forget the 100 work problems that you had all day and, the blanket that you were actually in front of the TV.
So true.
But that said, it's not lost on me. Like, I have thought many times in the last 2 years when values have gone crazy that maybe I should sell my house. Right.
Yeah.
That, maybe I should
always
cash
a
in.
Temptation. Yeah.
And every time I think about it, we look at each other and go, yeah, we would move and then be mad we didn't live here. I'd have to go buy another lake house. You're going to have to
find another place. Right.
For more money.
And then, correct.
That I hadn't spent 20 years making how I wanted. Right?
Correct. So, and he's talking about Cindy, who also does real estate as well with you.
Sort of. But yes, she's a licensed real estate agent too. She doesn't really do agent stuff. Like, if I'm on the other side of town and she has to do a showing, she will. She just won't be very happy about it.
I like her.
But she's really talented with visual design.
Oh, nice.
And so she does all my staging. She meets my photographer at the houses. She meets with clients ahead of time to, either use what they have, or if it's going to be an empty house, then when the photographer comes, she does all the virtual staging you've seen.
Oh, very cool.
So you see all that electronic furniture.
Oh, she's
gotten really good at it over the last 3-4 years. So,
and you know what? That is so needed, because when you are trying to sell, it's such an emotional thing, and everybody has all their stuff in their house, but buyers don't. They want to vision their life in there.
Right.
And that's a touchy subject, but it's like when you want to say, let's take some stuff out.
Depersonalize.
It's only going to, because it's going to sell faster, because somebody wants to see their picture frames and their,
It was
stuff.
Interesting when Cindy decided to work with me, and we're not married, but we've been together for 22 years. So, I mean, it's like being married, right? When she first started, I'm like, okay, well, you're good at all this visual stuff. How about we put you through the staging course? It's like a designation for realtors, like appraisal or whatever, right?
Okay.
So I sat through it with her thinking, what are they going to tell me? This is all stuff I do and kind of talk about every day. I thought it was the best one that I'd ever sat through. I would have paid the money for the course, because some of the things they taught you were phrases, in addition to, the rules of what goes where. And at this point, she's 10 levels past that course. Right?
Yeah.
But, that was a kind of the basics of it. But one of the things I would have paid for the whole course just for the phrase clutter eats equity.
Okay. And that is, then every agent should probably take that course, because there is I just mentioned it's emotional, right? And so to have the language that's not.
That kind of helps them to understand.
You got to,
That said, not everybody understands. I sold my aunt's house, my cousin, actually. She's very religious. And I walked in the door and I looked, and she had a 17-foot, 2-story wall that was all her crucifix collection. I just looked at her. She's like, I know. They all got to come down. So she was good about it. Not everybody is.
Did she do the St. Anthony? Is it St. Anthony, or was it when you put upside down?
Her house sold in a day anyway. So
you didn't even have to.
Yeah, she bought it right. She bought it right. She sold it right. She got the new one right. Everything is right in her world. But I will tell you, the example I use is a classmate from Groves about why you need to declutter and depersonalize is Neil Karagian, wherever you are, Neil.
Oh, yeah.
So showing Neil and his wife houses many years ago, they bought, they used to live right down the street from me, but they have like 10 acres out in Davisburg now, 12 acres actually.
Okay.
But I showed them a million houses back in the day. They were terrible. They were like the worst client. And I say that as Neil's one of my closest friends, right?
Yeah.
But Neil would walk in, and if there were pictures out, like he and his wife's Denise, they would walk in and go, "You think that's his grandfather? I don't know. Was he in the army?" And it's a house.
I have somebody like that too.
It's a house that they're never going to buy. Like they would walk up and go, "Yeah, we hate this one, but let's go ahead and walk through anyway." And then they would like sit and ponder. I'm like, "We've got 7 houses to see in X number of hours," and every time it was, "You think that's their daughter? Was she a cheerleader?" Yeah. Is that Clarkson High School?
And it's always like,
I don't know.
I wonder why they did that, or I wonder why. And it's like, well, they're not here. Stop wondering. Do you like it or not?
And not only that, they had already just, this isn't the one for us. The backyard's terrible. We couldn't possibly do it, but we want to walk through. Okay. So they were.
I should tell people, I understand your pain. And we've also had this conversation as agents, because when I came to Florida, I became a real estate agent, and then it expired over COVID. So I actually have my whole book here. I'm
Right.
trying to get my butt to, I have to start all over and take the class again. So my memory is not as sharp as it was when I first got it.
He is the example that I use when I'm talking to clients about why you need to depersonalize and let them see themselves here instead of you here.
So Neil served a purpose. That's awesome.
Exactly. Probably the only one.
Shout out to Neil. Maybe I'll have him on for.
Oh, you totally should. He's retired. Neil's retired already.
Oh, nice.
Well, retired and now working at the gun store because, that's what retired police officers do.
Right. Oh, that is really cool. I would love to talk to him because, that whole police force discussion would be so interesting, right?
And he's still Neil, right?
Stories.
So he's amusing to talk to regardless.
Right. Exactly. Right. By the way, you're the first person who is now seeing your
new class reunion thing. Nice.
Yes. I'm trying to act like I have a podcast studio because I don't. I'm not that famous, but I'm working on it. So we'll keep going with this. So let's talk real estate because that was part of the things I want to do the high school stuff, but I think we're on a
whatever you want to talk about.
We'll go back to growth. We're going to do opposite day. We're going to start with present day because it's been so much in the news and we can decide how much you want to get into it or not. But I've been fascinated by it because every day I have a different opinion as I learn more and see more. And first of all, it's business as usual. So you can't get caught up in the whole stuff.
I probably have gotten 25 calls on it since that case came down, right?
Yeah.
And those are the calls. That's not the 100 other discussions, right?
Hey, class reunion. I just want to give you a context to the next portion that Jim and I will be talking about regarding the real estate industry. In October, a federal jury in Kansas City did award $1.78 billion in damages to sellers for more than 260,000 homes that were sold in Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois. What this is referring to is the 6% that is negotiated at the time of listing a home. Typically, 3% goes to the seller and 3% goes to the buyer's agent, both for their efforts in that transaction. So we will be talking about it. It's just our opinion, business as usual, but this is the jury case that we are referring to as we move forward in our discussion. Happy house hunting.
Right. So first thing, I'm not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV, but my opinion is much ado about nothing. The reason that they did it in the state that they did is because it's not a contract state. So because there aren't contracts involved, they don't have to, worry about some of the rules everybody else does. But the fact is, everything's been negotiable forever. I mean, you were an agent, you know that. So there's going to be absolutely zero change to how any of this happens. Now, technology and, 20 other things may change it, but it's not going to be the law. The state of New York has recently changed their law. I don't want to get too deep into the agency relationship discussion, but you and I know that the seller pays the listing agent who then pays the buyer's agent, right? Mm-hmm. The New York State just changed their law as of January 1. It's going to change to the seller will pay the listing agent and the buyer's agent. So they'll pay them separately. There won't be that same agency relationship, but it's all going to be spelled out in their listing contract anyway. So tomato, exactly the same. Yeah. And in addition to that, as far as legal changes to it go, I was a mortgage guy for 20 years before I was a real estate guy.
I wanted to bring that up too. Right. Yeah.
So I have a background in all of that and how all of that works. Well, when Dodd-Frank came around and made all the changes that it did in how loans got done and how underwriting got done and how all of the things got handled for the banks got made whole because there were so many defaults, right? Even though it was their own fault. So the example that I'll use for you as to why I don't think anything's going to change this law is, well, the banks got made whole, 110%, 120%, whatever it was. But what happened to all the hard money lenders? What happened to any of them? None of them got paid. They just took it, right? The reason for that was nobody was in Washington lobbying for individual small lenders or credit unions or whoever, the smaller players didn't have a voice in Washington or in their state house. They just got left out of that bill. So, like hard money lenders that may have had 50 loans, like, relatively small guys that had 25, 50, 100 loans, they got nothing out of any of that. So likewise, when they talk about, this is all going to change, who's going to change it? I know for a fact the National Association of Realtors is going to be in Washington long and hard. And so is Remax, and so is Keller Williams, and so is Compass, and so is EXP. We've all got lobbyists in Washington putting our say out as to why things should be the way that they are. Who's going to be there to represent an individual seller? Nobody. So that law is never going to get written. That side of the story is never going to get told. Not that it shouldn't. I can tell you one of the calls that I got was from a client who I've known for a really long time, kind of a hippie chick, really sweetest woman in the world, had to counsel her not to give away her money. Like every time somebody in her family needed something, she would give them money. I'm like, you're going to need a roof. You gotta be, she's trying to be the best person she could be, but she was hurting herself, right? She was one of the people that called me and said, well, I totally agree with this. And I'm like, you are the example of the person that never would have been able to buy a house. You couldn't have paid somebody to be competent representation for you. It had to be the seller.
Paying the buyers.
Right.
Inside.
It had to be the seller.
Right.
Because you wouldn't have been able to buy. And likewise, you wouldn't have been able to sell and do the same things. So once she kind of got it, she was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Because if they tried to take it away in the ways that, the Zillows of the world that are saying it, and again, you understand because you do this for a living. It's not the 2 weeks it took me to do it. It's the 30 years it took me to do it in 2 weeks, right? They don't understand that if they pay some flat fee person that is, a part-timer or just checking boxes, they don't have your best interest at heart necessarily, or even if they do, they're just checking boxes. They don't know, okay, this is the right guy to call for the sewer scope in this area. Oh, this is a high arsenic area. We need to make sure we test the water. Right. Oh, there's foundation problems notorious to this. Or any of those things that are just things because you've been doing it for a long time. And you're never going to get that kind of competence in a flat fee.
And just to stop there for a second, because this is about the, commissions, that everyone thinks this is a make rich. We're all, so wealthy and we don't deserve it just for opening the door. And I'd love for you to go, what some of the agents have done on social media, which I have liked, is they've taken their check, right? And they've showed it on the screen. And then they tell you where it all goes. Like, it's amazing how many people have this perception that we're not salaried. It's our gas. It's our marketing. You want to go at the last minute. We're doing it.
It's not just those people. It's all the people that say, I want to get into real estate. Really?
Oh, that's
okay.
True. Yeah.
Good luck.
1 in 5 in Florida are agents. 1 in
right.
1 in 5.
So your average realtor in America makes $31,000 a year.
Preach it.
Right. And
it's hard.
A lot of those folks are full time.
Yes.
Right. So your average realtor. So that's just as many people are making less as are making more.
Yes.
And so when you say, oh, it's easy, all you did was this. Yeah, but I had to get here. And there is to be confident.
And there's insurance and there's,
And when you're doing it at a high level, everything's more expensive. Right.
Correct.
I mean, I always tell people I've got $2,000 in when the sign goes in the ground. By the time I've done photography and video and all the other things that I do, staging, and sometimes it's significantly more than that, depending on the property. If it's a,
but I do hope that some people panic over these changes. I would like to see the field level out for the qualified people, because the poor ones do like anything. When you have a bad experience, bad doctor, bad lawyer, whatever, it taints that industry, and it's only takes that one crazy person. Yeah. But there's a lot of people doing it the right way, and they should stay and elevate the game. I think that's kind of a cool thing.
There's very low barriers to entry, right?
Yeah.
But that said, in this last year, because of the low inventory, primarily, there's 100,000 less agents this year than there was last year, right? So 100,000 people have gotten out of the business, which is, not insignificant. Guys like me are nothing but happy. Right? Because we're going to still do fine. My numbers are, I've had some things roll right this year, but my numbers are the same this year as they were last year. Most people I know, even very good
people, you don't even know how incredible that is that James can do that, because it has not been
it's been
easy.
Most of the people I know are 20, 30% off, even the good folks.
Yeah.
So, but I will say, I've been lucky too. I've had some things just roll right. And sometimes years go that way and sometimes they don't.
But you bust your balls.
Yeah, it's 24/7 for me. I mean, I don't have it looks bright and sunny on the lake, but I was on my boat 4 times this year. And my boat's in my backyard.
No.
And that was last year and the year before it too. And so if I'm on my boat 10 times, it's because 6 of them where I was showing houses on the lake.
Wow.
So that's just not unusual for me. That said,
Wow.
we do sit on the deck, right? I do walk out the back door.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need to go around the lake. I'm not 25 anymore and, rushing out to the sandbar to play volleyball.
I know.
Should
It's
be.
like when you go to the beach, I'm like, skin cancer. When I get my
Right.
sunblock, like I got to put all that stuff.
Right.
And it's sand on my towel.
I'll get back to business for a minute so that we can get away from it. So
because I do want to.
These are the questions that we both get, right?
Yes.
So primarily, I hear people all the time. Well, I'm going to wait because these prices are coming down. There's going to be a crash. I got news for you. There's no crash coming.
I know.
The factors that are driving this inventory are not changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree.
The factors that are driving this inventory primarily are, number one, you've got all the people at 3% that are holding on for dear life because they can't even make a lateral move at 8% and not have their payment double, right? They can go from their $400,000 house to a $400,000 house and they're still not in good shape, right? So that's factor number one.
Good increase.
Factor number two is the builders can't build their way out of this, right?
That's a great
and the
statement.
building costs have gone up so much since COVID that we used to say $100, $150 a square for the lower end to build. Now it's $250 a square to build plastic showers, right? $300 a square gets you pretty good granite counters and whatnot. And if you're building luxury, significantly more. So if you think of 300 a square as your average build cost now, okay, 2,000 square feet, $600,000 plus whatever the cost of the land was. How many builders can build neighborhoods that are under 700? None.
Right.
So you're seeing none of that get built. So that's not going to change the inventory. So, and the third huge factor that most people don't think of is the BlackRocks of the world, the real estate investment trusts of the world are buying up residential real estate, which they figured out during the downturn was just as profitable from a return on investment standpoint as buying apartment buildings, which is all they used to do. So their portfolios are ever increasing. And those are all homes that are never coming back into the cycle, right? Those are all houses where nobody had
which
another
is the
kid.
sad part.
Right.
That to me, I have to say.
Those are all going to be rentals forever.
Yeah,
so nobody
and
had another kid and needed another bedroom. Nobody retired
No.
and needed to downsize, right? They're just rentals forever and ever. That 5 to 7 year cycle that we would normally think about as, when people move, those are just out of it. And then in addition to that, I was really fortunate to sit in a meeting a couple of days ago, Wednesday, actually, 2 days ago, with Barry Habib in a telemeeting.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know who that is, but he's on CNBC and whatever. And he's the big interest rate guru. And the most telling slide that he put up and that we were discussing back and forth with him was population. So in 2007, for instance, the population was, I'm going to pull it up because I have the slide saved. In 2007, the population of the United States was 301 million and the housing inventory was 4 million. As of 2022, right now, the population is 335 million and the housing inventory is 1.1 million. So we've lost 3 million houses out of inventory and we've gained 34 million more people. There's no way that we can build our way out of it. Plus, nothing affordable is getting built. Nothing. Yeah. Because the build costs are so high. And in addition to that, the REITs are still buying up everything, right? So for the foreseeable future, we're going to see low inventory. So the people
and it hurts that first time buyer or anybody under 500.
Yes,
it hurts them. And that's why apartment rentals, and that's why there's so many apartments being built, because they know. And everyone's like, why are they building an apartment on that corner? Because there aren't any homes for these people to buy.
Right.
And so, it's an eyesore possibly to take a piece of land and do that. But you can't build what you said, a community, unless it's
right. And it's going to increase urban sprawl in some ways.
Yeah.
People that want land are going to go farther.
You're giving me an thought process here. So homelessness is a housing problem. I had a guy named Ed Boyd on in my class.
Yeah, I know Eddie.
Yeah. And he works with people to get ahead of the homeless issue, people that are going to fall behind. Like he's trying to be that mediator with companies to help them locate those that are on the edge. Cause it just happens. It happens overnight, happens very, very fast. And in there, they talk about exactly what you're saying, which is these homes that are bought for rentals are never coming back on. But it's exactly what you just said. It's a great, great book. And everyone thinks homelessness is because they're drug addicts or whatever. We're running out of money and space and jobs and blah, blah, blah.
And they're going to be living smaller and more people to a spot, which is, more normal in other parts of the world. We've been lucky for a long time. But it's, the big thing in the industry is buy dirt, right? If you've got money, buy dirt. What has a house on it, doesn't have a house on it, buy dirt. Sit on it. Pass it down to the kids. Right?
Well, I always think about that when I look at Tennessee. I'm always looking for land. I'm like, I'll just put a little tiny home on there for now and call it a day. And,
especially if you can rent it and kind of break even on the costs. We have that. I have that discussion with people
I love
all the
it
time.
down here, but being from Michigan, like I still miss, I don't know. Tennessee has a hold on me just because it's like my way to get my seasons. I love it. I'm not coming back to Michigan, but I will get that close to Tennessee. And
my brother and my mom are both down by you, so I'm generally down there from end of December to early February. Typically.
Oh, nice.
Much to my brother's chagrin. I stay with my brother and he's like elated for me and the dog and Cindy to be there for the first few weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, hey, he's a very successful real estate agent there. And I'm always like, whatever, find me a spot. I'll pay,
Right.
Find me a spot. No. I don't want you to do that, but I don't want you to stay 6 weeks.
Right.
I think we may find someplace to go farther south to the Keys or something for a couple of weeks this year. It's always trouble with the dog though. It's hard to find places that'll let Atlas stay.
Okay, so that's why I wanted you to kind of come on and talk about it. I'll probably have you on a couple more times because this could go on deeper and wider. And
one of the things I talk about when people, especially when young agents ask me questions, is just like in grade school, we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
And we're in this, the two bases of the pyramid are food and shelter, right? We're in the shelter business. Everybody wants to talk to you about something.
Yeah.
Just make sure you have the answers, right? Which you don't always do.
No, we're going to go to Groves. We're going to go to Groves and then we'll end with your Mr. Broughton and your Catholic school bringing. That'll be hilarious. We were talking about, obviously I knew who you were and we knew each other in high school, but I was trying to figure out, like, it's amazing to me that, it's elementary, junior high, and high school. But we brought up the fact that athletics really, well, first of all, you came with us. Mm-hmm. So you were a class below or behind me and you came to make high school 9 through 12.
Right. So I was at Evergreen from the second half of 5th grade and 6th grade, right? Kitty corner from Groves, which isn't there anymore. And then at Berkshire with you. And then we all moved. We became the first 9th grade class at Groves.
Yeah. And we were saying that, like, in middle school or junior high, as they had at the time, you were kind of with your grade because there just wasn't combining. But athletics really, you played football with my friends and
right. In all the sports, all of a sudden the grades mixed a lot more because everybody was at a different level, and you were mixing into all that.
Did you do anything else besides football, or was football your primary?
No, I played football, I wrestled, and I ran track.
That's what I thought, but I was looking that up.
I didn't run track junior, senior year.
Oh, that's why, because I'm looking in it's my senior book, but I can see you in there, and I was going to show you, I was going to rattle off some of, the junior favorites. Do you remember having to fill out all those forms, like at the end of the year? Mm-mm. Famous. Yeah. Okay. So in your junior class, your favorite college was?
Michigan State.
Michigan. We were Michigan State. I thought it would be the other way around.
Was it the class that said that or me?
No, it's junior favorite. So there was a poll that everybody.
I thought everybody was U of M. I was never a U of M guy.
Yeah. I just was surprised ours was Michigan State. Favorite vacation spot?
Fort Lauderdale?
Florida.
Or Florida in general?
Well, just Florida in general. Favorite movie? So think about 84.
Oh, Breakfast Club was 84?
But that's a good one. Risky Business.
Yeah,
was what
that would make sense.
And then The Police was your favorite group?
Mine or The Class? Yeah.
The Class.
Yeah, certainly right up there. I was kind of an alt kid, which is why when you said Eddie Boyd, Eddie was like the alt DJ
back
I know.
then,
right? So Eddie and I would always talk about that stuff back then.
Yes,
but my favorite band in high school was The Jam.
Oh yeah.
So that was
didn't know much of them.
But I listened to
know
the Police. I listened to everybody. But that was like the tape that got worn out was the Jam and a lot of Elvis Costello and a lot of the alt stuff that the people that were listening to, Led Zeppelin or whatever weren't into.
And your favorite celebrity of the class,
right.
84 when you were a junior, was Eddie Murphy. And you know what ours was? Robert Redford. Like, were we acting like we were 100 before its time?
God,
I can't believe that's who
Redford's so much cooler than Eddie Murphy, though.
Well, he
I would have
is.
totally bought into that in hindsight.
Yeah, that's true. And he's totally handsome. I shouldn't say that, I wouldn't mind sitting next to him in a nursing home, but,
Exactly.
But I was so surprised. I'm like, okay, Eddie Murphy, I get. And then I looked at ours and I was like, Robert Redford. There must have been. I'll have to look up what movie was in 84.
That was long after Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. That was early 70s. Can't imagine what Redford was in the 80s as far as being that high school kids would have gone to.
True. And I know that you hung out with a lot of the older classmates, but is there anybody in your class that had like an epic party or like a memory that you have with your
Eric Daniel
with your class?
Had one that was pretty off the chain.
Oh yeah, he talked about that when I interviewed him. He said it was he went to school everywhere. And they still talked about it at school. They're like at college. They're like, you're the guy that had that party. And
I remember people.
That's
he had
right.
He had that modern house right off of Lasser.
Yes,
and people were like jumping off the balcony down into the living room, and it was God,
that's true.
I want to say, I'm trying to remember. God, there were a lot of them when I think back on it. Holy cow.
I know, because that's what we did.
The craziest one I remember that I was like a big part of it was at Billy Schwanke's house.
Oh.
Billy Schwanke's.
See, you said Schwanke. I always thought he was Schwanke, Bill Schwanke.
Schwanke. Tomato.
I've always said it wrong then.
He'll answer to both. Billy and I have been best friends since we were like 9. Before he went to Birmingham schools, we played Little League football together because I played Little League football in Southfield at Southfield Lathrop. Okay. So I was friends with all the Lathrop kids too.
Yeah.
All the football guys anyway. Billy had a New Year's party and his parents were out of town or over Christmas. Not out of town, but they were supposed to be out of town. They weren't supposed to come back yet. Mm-hmm. We took all the furniture from the house and packed it into 2 of the upstairs bedrooms. So it was just open. Like all the living room furniture, all the dining room furniture, everything was packed into an upstairs bedroom. And
like
there
a
were
mini
like
rave.
At least 500 people in his house on Rock Creek, right off, in the neighborhood by Brian Tracy and those guys. Mm-hmm. And I mean, 5 different high schools packed. I had parked my car in the garage with a bar in it. So we're drinking out of my car because we could lock it up during the rest of the party. And the police came to tell you how different the police are today. The police came 3 different times and emptied the party out. And then a new crop of people would come. And there's we're push brooming beer cans out of the wood floors in his living room, a foot high. And his parents decided to come home early. And they got there at we were all still there. They got there at about 2 a.m. And his dad walks in. There's no furniture. And there's, 6 inches of beer cans all over the house. Thank God we're both alive. But his dad was not happy.
How much trouble
that was the
did
night.
He get in?
Not as much as you'd think. I mean, we're both still alive.
It's brought up all the time in your house.
I somehow, got home on my bicycle or whatever. My car stayed in the garage. Right?
And we were talking about back then, what was amazing about those epic parties, nobody had cell phones.
No.
So how it goes word of mouth that fast is amazing to me. I think people are at a stoplight and they're rolling down their window and they're like, hey, Schwanke's having a party.
Right. Oh yeah.
I don't know how it happens so fast like that.
I don't know if you remember my father, but my father was everybody's dad. I would come home from college and there'd be 3 girls I used to date playing euchre with my father that didn't talk to me anymore. He was
living his best life. Yeah.
Not that way, but everybody loved him.
Who wouldn't want to?
Yeah, I would come home from work in the summer and there'd be 10 of my parents got divorced my senior year. And I would come home from work at college and there'd be, 10 people sitting by the pool at my dad's house and, hanging out with my dad. Right.
So cool.
Yeah. Good time was had by all, but to go back to how we found out about it without phones, my dad not knowing any better. And he loved all my friends. He was everybody's, if you asked any of my friends, if you're really in trouble, your dad's your first call. Who's your second call? Your dad. And probably your dad's my first call. Right. He was that guy. So of course he's at the football game and we won. So he told like a few people, hey, come to our house. We'll have a party at our house tonight. And he didn't realize he's thinking it's going to be me, Billy, Rick,
right.
20 guys from the team and maybe their girlfriends or whatever.
Yeah.
I come out of the locker room and I'm like, hey, where's everybody going? And it's somebody that didn't know me and they're like, yeah, we're going to Horn's house. Oh my God. And
party is a universal language. Yeah.
I lived 5 houses from Groves. I lived right down Embassy. So I can't even get home. I'm like walking down the street. There's cars down both sides of the street and cars going down the middle. My mother is losing her mind. There's people all over the lawn. Like needless to say, we're not having a party. And like everybody thought it was like crazy high school party. My dad was like, oh, I invited a couple of your buddies over.
Oh my God.
So yeah, that was an interesting evening with Mother.
See, so you have your own epic party story. That's incredible.
We never had them at my house. My grandma lived with us and my mom.
Oh, so mine did too, but she just, somehow, God bless that woman. She never said a peep. Now, sometimes my parents found out, and obviously the neighbors are going to tell her, but she loved watching everybody. And when she was too tired, she'd go upstairs and watch from the window upstairs. But yeah, she just sat there and,
wow.
She knew it was amazing. I loved having her there. It was the best part when we were up to shenanigans and she never told. You know what I mean?
She would,
that's just
my
a
grandma
classic
would never
grandma
have approved
move,
of
right?
that. She would have fed us all.
Yeah.
But not the kind of crazy, 2 kegs in the backyard parties that were not uncommon back then, right?
Yes. Okay. So we're going to close with, I could talk to you all day. You grew up in Detroit and you went to a Catholic school in Detroit before you went to Evergreen.
I did. I moved in 5th grade.
Your stories are funny from there. So, just if you can just talk about what it was like to grow up in a Catholic school and some of the stories you shared with me. And
sure.
Yes.
It was, well, first of all, it was a culture shock to move.
Yes,
right?
that's the part. Yeah.
So I went to a very small Catholic school. Well, a very small Catholic school and then a very big Catholic school. So I went to a school called Our Lady Queen of Hope, which was a church and 7 classrooms. And then the nuns would move in between classes. So
I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah.
And so the math teacher would go teach 6th grade instead of 7th grade or whatever.
Yeah.
But because it was so small, we had no gym. So if it was raining or something, we would play in the basement. So you'd play like kickball in the basement of the church. But most of the time we went outside. And in the winter, they had a field that had like a hill all the way around it. Mm-hmm. And they would make it into an ice rink in the winter. So you brought your skates and at lunch and at recess and during gym, you played skating games.
Which is so cool. And now it would be like insurance based, sign a waiver and ask.
All of it would be horrible.
That was the beauty of some of the, freedom where before someone gets hurt and sues them, it was fun.
When that school closed, I went to St. Mary's of Redford, which is a big school on Grand River. And it was far from my house, which, again, this is 1976. 77. And we think about it now. And it was like maybe 2 miles from my house. Like I'd take a skateboard and that's how I got to school. Like now parents drives. I walked.
Yeah, I know.
Through the city.
Yeah.
Like crossing major streets, like stop at the Chinese restaurant on the way home and get an egg roll. Right?
Person.
No safety person. It's the city. And like there were streets that you knew. Like if you rode your bike, you had to ride really fast so somebody didn't steal your bike.
Good golly.
Yeah, it was a whole different culture shock thing. And then when I went to Evergreen, like for the first year I went there, I wore dress slacks and a sports shirt every day because that's what my mom thought you had to wear to school.
And people have Garfield t-shirts on and whatever. I mean,
right. But my mom was a Detroit school teacher for 30 years. My mom taught at Bloomfield Junior High for 30 years.
Okay. Oh,
so,
yeah.
Wyoming and Livernois, she knew what time it was in the schools. So for sure I wasn't going to Detroit public schools, but my brother and sister were both graduated by the time we moved. They went to Catholic Central and Mercy.
Oh, nice. Nice. I wanted to go to Marion just because I wanted to wear the uniform. Like I didn't want to think about my wardrobe anymore. I was like, I'm tired of, looking at who's wearing what. Like, I just thought mirroring uniforms would solve that problem and, be done.
For a lot
and
of
then
people.
you like, one of the biggest contrasts you said was when you had to adjust to like our feral lifestyle in public school versus if you didn't have your homework done, they called your parents.
Yeah. In Catholic school, or at least the ones I went to, if you didn't do your homework, why don't you have your homework? Well, let's go call your mom.
Right.
Somebody's getting a phone call. Somebody's going to come in. It better be done tomorrow. And then I came out to public school and it was like, oh, you don't have your homework? My head would snap around. It wouldn't say anything to the kid. Okay. This is a little different.
And was it just boys or were you mixed?
No, it was co-ed. My school's co-ed.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say that would have been a big adjustment too.
Yeah, I always wanted to go to Catholic Central because my brother went there. Yeah. So I was raised a Catholic Central kid, like, and my brother went there when it was in Detroit and they had all the crazy traditions, They had noisemakers instead of cheerleaders because it was all guys, right? So it was 6'5", 6'5", West Side Drive. Hey.
Oh my God, you remember that.
And I remember all the cheers, right? It was, there obviously Brother Rice was the big rivals.
I dated my fair share of Brother Rice boys because, again, man in uniform. I don't know. I thought it was cute.
Trust me. We liked the Catholic schoolgirls for the same reason.
Exactly. Well, I've had so much fun and I don't know. I could continue to talk to you, but I've got to keep it at a timetable here. But
okay.
So fun. And call me when you're down in Naples. I'd love to.
Yeah, we'll be down there soon.
That would be awesome. But we're going to stay in touch because I think, and if anybody has any questions too, don't hesitate to reach out and we'll filter them through James because there's a lot of things that people still may not understand or have a question about.
I always happy to answer the questions. Jim, by the way.
Yeah.
I always know if people call me James, it's because
you know what?
they're reading it off
your
my
business
sign.
card and your everything is okay.
If they call me James, they're reading it off my sign when I answer the phone.
Yeah.
If they call me Jim, they probably know me. If they call me Jimmy, they got referred to me by somebody who, and I don't already know.
Was a family member or something?
Yeah, somebody that knew me for a long time because my dad was Jim. So when I was young, it was always Jimmy.
Aww.
Like Billy and Rick and Billy Schwanke and Rick Elke and Neil and all those guys still call me Jimmy.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute. I think I had a crush on Bill, I think, for a while there.
Everybody had a crush on Bill.
I know. And now you. So I can't thank you enough for being on here and taking the time and going through all the stuff that you did today to make it on the podcast.
No problem. Happy to help.
So yeah, thank you, my friend, and have an excellent weekend and try to enjoy the deck before the snow arrives.
Oh, there's a brand new patio with a great big fire pit. So the plan is to be able to use it through the winter.
Oh, nice.
But we're always pretty good about that.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I see people doing stuff right away. It only took me 20 years to build the brick favorite patio, but we just did that in September. So there's a new patio with a big fire pit that we're going to try and use a whole lot more.
Nice. Well, enjoy, and I'll hopefully see you in February. But thanks again for being on. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks.
Okay, see ya.
All right, friends, that's it for this episode of Class Reunion Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show, write us a review, and share this podcast with a friend. Until next time.